Today, we are diving into one of the most incredible transformations in all of human history. We're talking about the dramatic, the violent, and honestly, the brilliant story of how the Roman Republic died and how the Roman Empire was born from its ashes.
And it all really boils down to this one huge question. How does a system of government, a republic that had stood strong for 500 years, conquering most of the known world,
just collapse and become an empire with all that power concentrated in the hands of a single, all-powerful man? Look, this didn't happen overnight, and the story of how it all went down is exactly what we're going to unpack.
To really get this, you have to understand that the fall wasn't some sudden event. By the 1st century BC, the Republic was pretty much on life support. The whole system was breaking down, and Rome was just teetering on the edge of total chaos.
So what did that look like? Well, the symptoms were everywhere. You had rampant corruption, which made a handful of people incredibly rich while everyone else suffered. That, of course, led to constant political instability and gridlock. The old institutions, the ones that were supposed to keep things in check, like the Senate, they were losing all their authority. And the most dangerous part? You had these larger-than-life generals with massive armies who were loyal to them, not to Rome. That's a powder keg just waiting to explode. And right into this massive power vacuum steps one of the most famous and ambitious figures in history, Gaius Julius Caesar. Now, he didn't cause the Republic's problems, not at all, but he was the ultimate catalyst who saw the weaknesses and exploited them for his own gain.
So in 49 BC, Caesar makes a decision that changes everything. Now, Roman law was crystal clear. No general could bring his army into Italy proper. So by marching his legions across this little river, the Rubicon, he was essentially declaring war on the Senate. This was the point of no return.
And his famous words tell you everything you need to know about his mindset. Alia jacta est, the die is cast. He knew exactly what he was doing. The choice was made. From here on out, civil war would decide the future of Rome.
And what happened next was just a whirlwind. In just a few short years, Caesar crushes all of his rivals in a truly brutal civil war. He comes back to Rome not as a returning hero, but as its undisputed master. The terrified Senate names him dictator for life. But that absolute power, well, it was his downfall. A group of senators who genuinely believed they were saving the Republic assassinated him on the Ides of March.
But here's the irony. Killing Caesar didn't save the Republic, not even close. It did the exact opposite. It threw Rome right back into chaos and created an even bigger power vacuum than before. The only question on anyone's mind was, who's next?
And two main contenders stepped into the ring. First, you've got Mark Antony. He was Caesar's charismatic, battle-hardened right-hand man. He seemed like the obvious choice, right? But then there was this total wild card, a sickly, 18-year-old kid named Octavian. He was Caesar's grandnephew, and, in a total shock to everyone, his adopted son and heir. Literally nobody took this guy seriously.
And that was their biggest mistake. Because, while Antony might have been a great general, Octavian was a political genius. He would become the true architect of the Roman Empire.
See, Octavian learned from his great-uncle's fatal mistake. He saw that Caesar's arrogance, flaunting his power with titles like dictator for life, was what got him killed. Octavian was way more cunning. He knew he had to play the long game. And he followed this methodical, ruthless, three-step plan to get absolute power. First, he teamed up with Antony to hunt down and destroy Caesar's assassins. Then, once that common enemy was gone, he patiently maneuvered against his own allies, including Antony. This led to one final decisive civil war, which he won at the naval battle of Actium. The whole game was his. So now he's in complete control, but he pulls off this brilliant rebranding. He stays away from hated titles like king or dictator. Instead, the Senate gives him a new, almost godlike title, Augustus, which means the revered one. He was the first Roman emperor, but he was smart enough to never actually call himself that.
Okay, so Augustus is the man in charge. But what did this new world he created actually look like? How different was the empire from the republic it had just replaced?
And this, right here, is the grand irony. This is the absolute peak of his political genius. Augustus's official story was that he hadn't destroyed the Republic at all. Oh no, he claimed he had restored it. He kept the Senate around, he kept the old political offices, but it was all a show, a facade. He held all the real power.
And you can see the fundamental change right here.
Power used to come from the Senate and the people of Rome. Now, it all flowed from one person, the emperor. Instead of two elected leaders, you had one ruler who would pass power down to his heir. The Roman citizen went from being a political participant to being a subject.
But, and this is a huge but, there was a trade-off. After nearly 100 years of brutal civil wars, the rule of Augustus kicked off a period of peace and stability that would last for 2 centuries, the famous Pax Romana, the Roman peace. Which brings us right to our final nagging question, the one that really defines this entire story. Rome traded its chaotic, messy, often violent political freedom for peace and security under the rule of one man. So, was that peace worth the price of liberty? It's a question that echoes down through the centuries, and it's definitely something to think about.